Okay, I'm going to be walking through how to use Google Earth to prepare for golf tournaments and look at golf courses, especially those that you haven't seen before. Typically, I use this process to prepare before I get to the golf course for tournaments. Sometimes I will review a course that I have seen before. It can be helpful, even if you've played there, to see what some of the carries are and just to just get a feel for some of the tee shots, especially. But this is especially helpful if you have not seen the golf course before, and I find it useful to do before practice round because you'll already have an idea of what some of the lines are and what some of the carry distances are and so forth before you get to the golf course. I'm going to use Google Earth. There's other tools you can use like 18 birdies and stuff like that, but typically I use Google Earth because it's you can use it on your computer. Can see a little bit more detail. You can also, I'll show you, you can go from a 2D view to a 3D view so you can see a little bit of the topography of the golf course. And it just is a little bit easier to make different measurements as well with Google Earth. 18 birdies, for example, is simpler to use. And it's definitely, if you're out on the golf course, I would recommend using something like that. But for like pre-tournament, pre-trip preparation, I typically like to use Google Earth. So as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of golf courses here that I've created that I've used. And so what I do is I create these projects and I can reference them later. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project today. You don't always have to create a new project, but I kind of like doing that. It makes it a little easier to track. So we've got Google Earth here open. This is completely free service to use. You just go to earth.google.com. It'll pull you and it'll bring you to here. I'm going to create a new project and so I'm going to say new map. And then let's see here. I'm nearby. I normally can do, so this is Riverview. I'm going to use Riverview as an example. It was already pulled up to here, but if you didn't, you want to do a search for golf course, you can do Riverview Golf and Country Club. Click on it, and it'll take you there in Google Earth. Okay, so there's a few ways to navigate. So this is just a normal click here to drag around here. Then if you press the shift button and you kind of go around like this, you can go into 3D, or you can kind of spin around like that too. So that's how you kind of navigate around by pressing and holding the shift button while you're doing that. And so I'm just going to run through this really quick and I'm going to create a couple holes as an example. I won't go through the whole thing for the sake of time. Let's see, let's go ahead and get started. So you go click add path or polygon. So this is the first tee here review. So I'm just going to put a little starting spot right there. And then kind of zoom out a little bit. And then what I usually like to do is I like to put another dot around where I think my tee shot would normally go. So in this case at Riverview, I'd probably usually hit it to right about there. And then you can see it's 306 there. And then I put another one on the green there. So there's hole one. I click done. And then let's see here. I'm going to save it to the project. And so I usually try to get it in a good view here so that when I reference it back, it'll kind of zoom it to this point where it's straight. Save the project. I'm going to call it hole one and done. Okay. So now that we've done that, we've got the hole there. And so you can kind of take a look here. You can sort of get an idea, a feel for what this looks like a little bit. So you can see, like you can tell from Google Earth that this is an elevated tee shot. You kind of get a idea of how wide it looks, where the trees are. You can also, maybe pick some aiming points from this. So like I can tell from here, if I'm teeing off from here, maybe my aiming point would be like right edge of the green or something like that. So that can be helpful. If you've never seen this course before and you're playing a practice round, you at least know where to aim approximately. And then next is where we start actually measuring out some distances. So you go to this little thing right here, measure distance and area. And I'm going to click right there by the tee box. And I'm like, okay, so let's just say it's elevated tee shot. So if I'm going to hit it 330 with an elevated tee shot, let's see where that puts me. Okay, so I put it right there. And so I can see that's 330. And you might have to change your units to yards if it's not there by default. So you can go in here, you can see, okay, what's around here? Like what's at 330? And you might want to measure, okay, how wide is it? Right? Because sometimes, obviously we got a lot of width here, so there's no worries on this hole, but maybe, you might play a hole where it narrows up at a certain distance, right? And so you're like, okay, if it's only 20 yards wide at 330, but it's 50 yards wide at 300, then maybe I want to hit a 300-yard shot instead. So that's an example there. Now, Riverview, there's not a ton of trouble. Let's see if maybe I can just pull up a quick example. Let's just go over to Tierra really quick. Okay, so here we are at Tierra. And let's see, this is hole 1 right here. Okay, so let's use hole 1 as an example. So we tee off from back here, I think, right? Yep. Put that there. Okay, so we get to like 303. Well, let's just say, okay, at 285, right? The fairway is 56 yards wide. So the fairway's huge at 285, but you go up another, let's say, what is that? Probably 20 yards or 30 yards. Okay, 40 yards here. And the fairway all of a sudden is how wide? 27 yards wide. So it's like it's not even half as wide. So that's an example of where you're like, okay, maybe I want to hit a shot that stays in this wider part of the fairway. And you can know that before you get to the golf course. It can be especially useful on dogleg holes. So I'm going to go over to Wilcox, which is a golf course I know probably a lot of you guys haven't played. And so this could be a good example of where, it might be useful. So let's see here. This is Wilcox here. This is hole 10. Let's go hole 11 here. This could be a good example. Okay. So you get to hole 11 and it's a dogleg right, and you can't really see, like where I usually hit my driver, I can't see it, because if I go straight ahead where I see it, I can't hit anything more than like 220. But if I want to hit driver, I got to aim like over here, right? So yeah, like, okay, let's just say I'm going to hit 3-wood. That my 3-wood goes 275, right? I've got to aim over there, right? So this is something that you can look at before you get to the golf course. That way, when you get to there to play a practice round, or if you're playing a tournament without a practice round, you'll at least have a general idea of where to hit it, right? And you know what's up there, right? Because if you're going into there blind on this hole, for example, you have no idea what's over here. It just looks like it's just a whole bunch of trees. So that is a great example right there of a time where you would want to do something like this, especially if you're not getting a practice round, but even if you are, it'll help you be better prepared. So anyways, going back to Riverview, so because I saved this hole, I can go back to hole 1 very easily. There it is. And so what you can do is I like doing it where I put a line on each hole so I can quickly access it if I want to go back and look at a hole in particular. You don't particularly have to do that. I think it makes it easier, but it takes more time for sure. But you can always just go in there and just do these measurements, right? So like if I just wanted to look at hole 2 at Riverview, and I'm going to see from there, like how far is it to get to this part of the fairway, this kind of a wider part of the fairway. It's 270, okay? And then how far, if I hit 270, that's like, okay, about how far do I expect to have in? 107 to the middle of the green. So I would recommend at least doing something like that. And then, yeah, getting down here, taking a look, you can kind of see what the hole looks like. You can see a little bit of the topography. Obviously, Riverview's pretty flat, so there's not as much. But like if we were to go back to Tierra on hole 1, we could kind of see how, okay, yeah, if I hit my drive and it gets to this point, you can see that there's a dip right there, right? It slopes down into there. So I would also say, if you haven't played a course before, it might be a little bit tricky to know exactly what the routing of the course is. So that's something where you could potentially use like 18 birdies in conjunction with the Google Earth, where you can go on there and it'll have the holes probably pre-marked on 18 birdies for most courses, and you can use that as a reference point. Or you can go on the course website, look at the scorecard or look at the course overview, and that can help you as well. Anyways, if you guys end up doing this and you have any questions or need any help with it, let me know. I'd be happy to help. I've done this a lot, and I've found it to be very helpful in preparing, especially for tricky courses you haven't played before. It can make a big difference because if you don't know where you're hitting it, or you don't, you can hit a good shot, and it'll get you in trouble. And you can lose strokes on good shots, and we don't want that to happen. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks.